Welcome to the Irish Marketing Podcast powered by IMJ and Tin Pot Productions. I am Darryl from Tin Pot, and today something special and dense and interesting. We've covered AI from a number of perspectives on the podcast. We spoke to Gavin Duff from Friday Digital before, tech correspondent Elaine Burke about the Inception AI podcast factory. And today we're diving deeper into the depths of the titanic mind belonging to Paul Dervan, who of course is a marketer of some distinction, formerly worked for Indeed, National Lottery, O2 and Miro, Marketer of the Year in 2022. And latterly Paul is out on his own with Run with Foxes, his own venture and a company that helps other marketers and companies to build workflows and systems primarily using AI. And as we've often said on the podcast, there is often a lot of noise and bombast and hype around AI. So hopefully what we have today is much more signal. Paul has burned many midnight candles working with large language models like Claude to develop systems. And I do say systems because whereas I might use AI for once-off chats or questions, Paul has gone way deeper, building end-to-end solutions that give him consistent results, automate repetitive tasks, and free up his brain for what you might call the more important parts of the work. So I think there's a lot for everybody to learn from Paul's tried and tested methodology. There'll be lots of positive takeaways. And of course, there are threats as well as opportunities. We spoke about job displacement, hiring considerations, and where you should focus your efforts in a changing world.
I'm of the view people should double down on the things that they're really good at in life. I don't think people are going to be an expert in something if it's something that they really don't enjoy, because it's just hard work.
Paul also gave us his take on the fundamental skill set that makes you valuable in an AI world.
Deep curiosity is one of the things that CEOs are looking for. Not having curiosity is going to kill you in an AI world when in the past you might have relied on your ability to make Gantt charts.
We spoke about Paul's team of AI agents, that's Clara, Joe and Nate, about creating systems for writing and ad generation, the benefits of skeptical optimism, and how Paul's second book is progressing. Lots to take in and absorb, and hopefully an insight into not just how you can use AI, but more importantly, how you can use it effectively. So worth a listen if you want to get practical about AI rather than just anxious about it. Let's have a listen. Delighted to welcome today Paul Dervan, owner of Run with Foxes. I'm going to summarize this very crudely. You can correct me if I'm wrong. In an AI world, most marketers are hedgehogs. Some marketers are hedgehogs and should be foxes. So tell me a little bit about Run with Foxes then, which is your own entity then, flying your solo flag.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the background behind the ethos and the thinking of Run with Foxes as opposed to crawling with hedgehogs.
Yeah. So I'll try and summarize this quickly. So I wrote a book about 6 years ago called Run with Foxes, and there's a great book called Superforecasters by Philip Tetlock, and he did this research over a long period of time where he measured predictions versus outcomes, and what he found was one group was better than the other, and the group that was better were those who were able to use multiple data sources, were able to change their mind when the evidence suggested they were wrong. They were to use multiple tools and they wouldn't get stuck over one big lens of how the world works. They were better at making decisions. Their predictions were more accurate. And he called them foxes. So I nicked that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it really resonated with me. And having spent a couple of decades in marketing, I was guilty and had been guilty of a lot of these biases and mistakes and other reasons that make our decision making less accurate over time. And so my first book was a very honest book about a lot of the decisions that I made in marketing that led to bad outcomes or less than the outcome I wanted, as well as interviews with some of the best kind of thinkers in the world. And so that was Run with Foxes. And I hadn't planned to write a second book, actually. I am writing one now. But I got very deep into the world of AI about 2 and a bit years ago. I was working for a company called Miro, and who are a really impressive technology company. And their CEO, he asked all the leaders to really push how far we could go in our functional areas with AI. And so I took that opportunity to test lots of tools, to understand what works, didn't work, and also a lot of time to understand why people who were doing well, what were the different types of behaviors that they had versus those who were less efficient with them. I was doing marathon sessions like at nighttime, burning the midnight oil. So about a year ago, I left there and decided to go out on my own. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to spend time working with teams to, mostly marketing, but it kind of falls into sales and go-to-market as well, to help them redesign how they do work to take advantage of the stuff that was coming.
And one of the reasons, a number of reasons I want to speak to you today, but I suppose around the area of AI, and we were speaking about this a little bit before the podcast, so there is a lot of LinkedIn prophesizing about how we're all going to be replaced. There's obviously a lot of hype. Some of that hype is probably been pushed by LinkedIn or big tech companies because they're so heavily invested. But I think one of the outcomes is that there's so much AI stuff out there and so much kind of algorithmic pressure to feel that I need to be using AI. But really, just using AI is a strategy, but it might not be the best strategy. The best strategy, I would think, is to know what the best tools are and how to use them so that you, as you say, are getting the best outcomes. So one of the things I suppose I'd like to talk to you before we get maybe to the slightly more ethical side of things is just how can marketers use AI effectively? What should they be using? How should they be using it as opposed to just diving into a load of AI stuff that may not deliver?
What I would say is, like, for a lot of, like, it's incredible what AI can do and what it will do. And then there's lots of gaps. But I think the starting point, if you're a marketer, your starting point should be, in my opinion, what problem am I trying to solve here? And it could be a big problem, it could be a small problem, it could be a commercial problem. Is there something that I do every day or every week that's repeatable that you would love to automate? Right. So are
there any examples you could give of that, or maybe things that you have found that are repeatable that you've been able to use?
Yeah, I have so many. So I'll give one that you'll find relevant. And this might be a little bit more sophisticated, but like I have built a research agent that will go off to my favorite podcasts and Substack and newsletters. And it has been briefed to find specific things that I'm interested in. It'll read the transcripts of the podcasts on YouTube, and it'll read the Substack newsletters, and it will look for specific things that I've briefed it to look for, and then it will take that information and it'll put it back into a file on my laptop, and it will tag it in a way that is easy for me to retrieve. And then what it'll also do is it'll show it to me when I'm asking for things that are relevant to it. So it has a knowledge kind of link between that. Now, you still have to read the information, and I like to read, so that's good. But what it saves me doing is it saves me time. So you can spend less time gathering that information and more time wondering what are the implications like for this information. So we often talk about there's work and there's work about the work. The way I sometimes think about it is if you can use AI to squeeze the time you spend on the work about the work, that might free you up to spend more time on the stuff that you're paid to do, which is make good decisions and things like that as well. So I come from a creative background, and so I feel very comfortable in the creative space. Nothing kills my soul more than doing a Gantt chart, right? So if I was said, I've got to put a Gantt chart together for a client, right? I was like, I will pay huge amounts of money to someone to do this for me because I don't want to do it, right? AI can do that really well. So I have a project manager assistant who will do that for me, an AI assistant. So I'll just talk. The other thing is this, we talk about tools. I don't hardly type at all anymore. It's all just talking to AI, and it's so much faster.
And when you say you're talking, so
just like we are here.
Exactly. So what the point, that's a conversation. That's not you issuing a command. That's a command response. Can you change that? So how interactive is that conversation that you're having with AI?
I wish you would talk back. So like in some of
But it's giving you responses in some form or other.
It does back in words. Yeah. Like you can use the apps. Like you can use ChatGPT to talk to. And you can use Claude to talk to in the app. I spend a lot of my time in Claude Code, which is the terminal in the computer, and it doesn't talk back yet. But I can talk away like we're talking now. I can say, so for example, I could say to the project manager,
and the project manager is AI.
AI project manager.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'll say to my project manager, so we have a meeting in 2 days' time. Can you review the Gantt chart? Can you look at the transcript from our last meeting with the client? I said there's a couple of tasks in there that I think we should have a look at. And can you update the Gantt chart, make sure that everything's captured, and write a contact note? And they'll often and it'll say, will I write the email? I'll say, no, I'll write the email. It's fine. But so what the project manager is doing, it has a knowledge file. It has a lot of context because I've built it up that way. So it knows what I'm talking about. It knows where to find the transcript from my meeting. And I'll say, okay, look at that, find the tasks, add them to my own task list. I have like a priority task like every day. Update the Gantt chart, show it to me, and write the contact note. And then we'll review it together, and I'll say, listen, this bit didn't happen for whatever reason, just like you talk to anyone else. I'm still looking at the Gantt chart, and I'm still saying, okay, this task is coming.
So you've got overview.
Yeah. And I can say, oh, this bit, or this isn't going to happen anymore. It was too ambitious, blah blah blah. But it does that heavy lifting for me. So for people who hate that type of like work, project management work, it's really good. And for people who are really good at project management work and are very organized and structured and things like that, but might feel they're not that creative, it's quite good at that too. So I find it can fill the gaps.
Yeah, the skill sets.
Yeah. And so, I'm of the view people should double down on the things that they're really good at in life because it's more enjoyable. And I don't think people are going to be an expert in something if it's something that they really don't enjoy because it's just hard work. And so what I find AI has been very helpful is it can get you up to competent on other areas that you're never going to be, like no one's going to hire me to be a project manager, but they might hire me to figure out some advertising or brand problems and things like that.
And when you say project manager then, so do you have different personas or people within your AI stack that you have, secretary, project manager, creative, and how do you build up those personas? Because all of those theoretically could have access to all the different information. So when you say project manager, what's the difference between your project manager and your, I don't know, creative director, whatever your other characters might be? Yeah.
Now I don't have a creative director,
that's a bad example.
Well, actually, I have tried. So,
what happened when you tried?
Well, so creative directors are, by their very nature, ideas led, and they a lot of it comes from their experience as well as their training. A lot of AI hasn't been trained on that type of data yet. If you ask AI to write an ad for you, it will go to LinkedIn type ads and it will write that for you. It doesn't understand like big ideas. It doesn't understand the difference between an idea and an execution and all those things that creative people have spent years on. That's not to say they can't. There's some good research that shows that AI can outperform on creative tasks than your average person. Whether they can beat a really skilled creative director is yet to be seen. But to your other question,
yes.
So I have a few. I have a few personas, if you like. In theory, you could have one that can do them all, and I'm not sure if that is any worse. I just find it's easier for me. So if I'm in the middle of a session or a terminal session, I can just literally type in / my project manager's name and say, capture this note.
What's your project
So my project manager's name is Clara with a K.
Okay. Yeah,
so from the book Clara and the Sun.
Okay.
And then I have a growth agent, like a growth marketing agent called Joe. J-O, not to be confused with J-O-E. and then I have a finance one called Nate, and also spelled badly, N-A-T. And
So you're effectively using names to direct information. So it's just about saying, I want this agent to know this and this agent to know that. And this is pertinent to this agent, but not pertinent to that one.
And it just keeps it cleaner for me. But in theory, you may not need to do that. You could have just one like super agent that knows to go into finance mode.
Yeah.
So I've seen that done as well.
Yeah. But you're filtering information effectively.
Yeah, and then you can be. I just find sometimes AI they confuse themselves a little bit. So I'm a big believer of really narrow scope. So if you can train AI to do one thing really, really well and really spend the time, I think there's real benefits in that, as opposed to trying to get like AI to do lots of things, because with too many instructions, it starts to get confused itself.
You spoke about the idea of kind of deciding what your use case is and narrowing the idea. In all of your journeys and your late night coding with Claude and other AI systems, what are the things that you think, either the tools or the processes, that should be avoided, that are just rabbit holes, or what are the things that you should look out for to say, okay, this is not productive, this is not working? Yeah,
so like all the tools are useful to some extent. I would say, firstly, there's an awful lot of hype on the likes of X, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And you got to remember, a lot of these people are either trying to build their own audiences or sell you something. There's a big difference between showing something in demo and having it work for you in real life, in real situations. And so, like, if people see that stuff and think it's amazing, I would take it with a grain of salt. So I guess that's one part. The other thing is, if you don't have a clear goal and you don't know what good looks like, it's going to be very hard for you to get to a satisfactory outcome. And so I would like leave the tools aside for a moment and go, okay, what would good look like for me? Good looks like for me is not spending time doing Gantt charts, but I do know a client needs it and a contact note and something like that. Okay, now, can I build a system that will always consistently deliver that for me? And building the first prototype is quite easy, but then testing. So you go, okay, it's consistently going to get me the outcome I want every time.
And how much do you have to correct course? Because sometimes it seems to me you can ask the same question and get a completely different answer. How much do you have to course correct? How consistent are the answers, and how much can they be trusted?
Yeah, so there's two parts to that. The trusted part is second. What I'd say is this. So,
I mean, if you're not an expert in an area and you're potentially getting answers that you don't have the knowledge to say, to maybe have that conversation, is there a danger, or how does that work?
Yeah, and I think there's a big danger. If you're not an expert in an area, like there's a few things you can do. Like I always say, for example, I often don't do one-off chats with AI anymore. I tend to build things first, which gives me consistency later, and I can explain that in a moment. But if you are just doing one-off chats, there's a few things I would do. I would always ask for sources. I'd always say, how confident are you in this answer? Out of 1 of 100, how confident?
And typically, what's the response?
Oh, it depends on, like, it'll tell you. It'll tell you. It'll say, I'm 70% on this, and then you have to ask why. So, and then I might open a separate chat and I'd say, I want you to be devil's advocate and I want you to find holes in this. I said, your job is to find gaps anywhere you can in this. Yeah. And I will give it the new one and then ask it to look for that. So it can, and it's really good at that. It takes on the new role of like finding holes, and you can say aggressively oppose this. And it will. So,
and do you find that you're getting a markedly different answer after that interrogation? And so that interrogation then is a hugely important part of what you're doing. Without that, the answer you have may not be credible. Yeah.
So I think you always find stuff when you do that. But like, there's a certain fluency that comes working with this for a while, where I don't even. It's part of my process. So it doesn't even, like, it's just one of the steps. And actually, when you build a model, like, so I've built AI writers for clients, and one of the steps it takes on its own is to do checklists, sources, to aggressively oppose it. So even before it gives you your output, it's already gone through all these checks. That's just part of the building a good kind of agent, which is even building in biases. A lot of marketers make mistakes between like things like correlation and causation, or they get mixed up with kind of like recency bias and all these other biases. You can build checklists of biases into the program so that it's critiquing itself all the time. Like, if you think about AI as a very earnest yet naive assistant who doesn't really have any knowledge except what it's pulled from. And what's very good about it is they learn as well. So after every session, usually at the end of a session, I'll say, well, okay, so what did we learn? For example, I've been training Claude on how to do images and ads and static ads, which you can do very well now, but it had to learn to leave space for headlines. And not just space, but contrast. And in the beginning, it would put words on top of the faces. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So I had to train it to leave 40% of the like space image for headlines. So just like you would in ordinary art direction. So after a session, I'll say, what did we learn? And it'll go, I learned this, this, and this. And then okay, make sure you save that to memory. And then it saves it to memory and gets it right next time.
Like, as I listen to it, it's fascinating and it makes so much sense. And I could see how the approach that you use and that interrogation would be so beneficial. And I wonder how many people have that same approach, or how many people are using the once-off chats. But I suppose my question is, as I hear you having these conversations, these back and forths, albeit it's not speaking, but it's responding, whether it be Claude or ChatGPT, how much of those conversations is informed by your 20 years of marketing and conversations that you might have had in the analog world where you're interrogating campaigns? And because it feels like the conversations you're having are similar to the conversations that you've had over the years.
Yeah, an awful lot. Yeah. So partly why I started writing the second book is the things I believed deeply in for the first book became even more important. There's these 5 behaviours that I'm advocating for in an AI world. One of them is being skeptically optimistic, which is different to being cynical. So cynical is, I'm not interested, I don't believe it's going to work, I'm closing down, right? Which is never good for marketers. Skeptically optimistic is, I hope this works. If it did, it'd be really good, it'd be really interesting, but I need to see evidence. This was a belief I had pre-AI, which was like, if you ask anyone who worked with me, if they said, look, that didn't work, or this isn't going to work, or the research says this isn't good, my very first response has always been, is there evidence? I'm empirically led, and I want to see the evidence. And all good marketers should be that, because there's so much fake stuff out there. But as we enter an AI world, there's so much fake stuff, and there's so much hallucinations by accident by the models that you have to be skeptical. You can't believe what you've read. It's not even the source, it's the source's source. Like if AI says, oh, this is true, I'm like, well, how do you know it's true? Where's the evidence? Where's the source? And even naturally I'll go, is there any reason why this would not be true? And what instances would this not be true? So because I have a whole bunch of questions that I would normally ask anyway, I've just built them into the model. So, your question is, how important has the last 20 years? I think it's really important. And I think that for everybody, the things that they were good at, they should assess them and say, okay, could part of that be done by AI? Right, where should I go more upstream?
And I would say that part of your success is not just the tool, but it's the ability to know what questions to ask. And that's how you're getting the quality of the output, because you effectively are good at the interrogation part, which perhaps other people can ask the questions but might not know the follow-up and the interrogation and the bits to say, okay, what do we need to tease out to get to the correct answer, as opposed to just getting to an answer. Yeah,
that's true. And part of that is what I'd call just the fluency of it. And I think that just comes with time. Like there's no substitute for getting your hands dirty and just spending time in it. Like you can read about it all day long, but like getting in there and trying to build something is where you learn. If you're trying to get a good result and you haven't built a system, you can start with giving context. You can even say, I'm trying to do the following reasons because I need to talk to my boss about something or something. And then it understands why you're trying to do what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then if you can be very clear on what good looks like good looks like is a 5-slide presentation that has X amount of charts, that is done in my brand guidelines, that follows this pattern: problem, opportunity, recommendation, solution.
Just want to talk a little bit about the whole potential job displacement. So there will be, and probably has been already to some extent, potential job displacement. To what extent, it's hard to know, because I think the hype cycle tends to muddy the waters. And
they're calling it AI washing.
AI washing.
Yeah,
okay. So, and I want to look at it from the perspective of maybe, somebody who's working in creative, in the wider creative sector, who works in production, or who maybe works in production. Like, should somebody like that be genuinely concerned, or what's the skeptical, optimistic viewpoint in that scenario? Because my feeling is that perhaps the displacement has been over-egged, but it's a concern nonetheless. So where, if you're somebody who's maybe primarily in the production or creative sector, what should your mindset be?
I think it has been over-egged. And we are seeing a whole bunch of things that are happening. I'll give you my opinion. I think that not all production is equal, not all creative is equal, in the same way that not all writing is equal. For example, there's a whole kind of group of people who are saying AI, all AI writing is slop, right? And I don't think that's true at all. I think that most writing in general is not that great anyway, but I think the difference between writing a radio script or a TV script versus writing an instruction guide on how to build your furniture, right? It's still writing, but it's not the same. I think AI is really good at, here are the instructions you need to follow. And you think about all the websites and all the marketing material that's out there, which is technical guides telling you what to do, follow a process. There's no reason why a human would do that better than a good robot. When you move into advertising and creative ideas, it's not really writing. You're now into ideas. If you're working with a really talented creative director, at one stage they're going to write some amazing copy, hopefully. Before that stage, there is, what is the big idea we've got here? And AI is not very good at that yet. Where that I think will go is you'll have really good creatives working with AI. So even if you're a really talented creative, there's huge benefits to getting your hands dirty to see how it can make your stuff better or faster or more scaled. I hired an amazing creative director, top world class creative director, and he'd worked agency side in the US. He'd worked for some really big brands, and I was really pushing him to get his hands dirty with AI. Not that I wanted him to AI do the stuff that he does really well. I just wanted him not to get stuck doing versioning and resizing of ads. I was like, listen, that takes up 20% of your day. And of course you can do it, but I'd much rather you're spending your time on big, important challenges.
But of course the concern might be that if it can take up 20%, eventually the job might be supplanted. That it might be kind of, there is, and I think you have to have that optimism to say, you need to use the tools, but I suppose people have an awareness to say, look, that these tools potentially can do, even if it can do a proportion of my work, that's a proportion less useful than I am, so to speak.
Yeah.
So there is, I suppose, a legitimate concern.
Oh no, there is. So there, for the really talented people, the concern I'd have is for versioning, activation, less creative work. I'll give you a very practical example. When I worked in the National Lottery, we built these water slides. We used music, Mr. Blue Sky. We measured them, so we knew exactly what we were doing. To come up with the water slide concept, we worked with a really creative team, really experienced creative team, and made some incredible advertising, TV ads and all sorts of stuff, right? So that's the heavy creative work, right? Good thinking, really well executed, really good stuff. And then about 50% of your budget is on activation ads. They're small little banner ads, little digital ads that are turning up on Facebook. That work is often just telling you what the jackpot is, and you're using the canvas of the creative that you've built. I've built an ad machine to do that work. If your entire role is wrapped around the activation work, then your role is at threat.
From a recruitment point of view, what would be the advice then for somebody who is managing an agency in this AI age? If somebody within an agency is looking to recruit in an AI age, does it change your mindset in terms of the skill set that what you might be looking for?
Yeah. So I still, one of the things that people ask me to do is they help me to sit on hiring panels, often in the creative world, like for example, I recently helped hire a CMO. I devalue knowledge more than I used to. So knowledge is really, really important, but in an interview perspective, anyone can blag it and pretend they have knowledge
just by prepping.
Yeah, it's so easy to prep, right? So what I'd say is knowledge is really important, but I wouldn't over-index on that when I'm interviewing and hiring. I really want them to have knowledge. I think that curiosity will be proving that you've got curiosity is really important, both in the hiring and in the role. Because there's a view which is, if someone is like a life student and is keen to learn and curious, they can pick up these skills much quicker than they would have had to in the past. So I think curiosity is going to be the number one trait that people will look for, and one of the demonstrations of that will be, what have you built?
Okay, I was just going to ask that question. Yeah, so how do people demonstrate curiosity? So
what have you built?
Yeah.
Okay. And not what you know. Like, what have you built? So have you built an app? Have you built a prototype for something? Can I see it? Have you built a better process for you to get customer information? What have you built? And it's a stumbling question at the moment for a lot of people. They're like, oh, I don't know if I've built anything. And I would advocate, it's one of the 5 kind of behaviours I talk about in my book, is I would advocate people start building. And start small, build something small. To your earlier questions, find a problem that you want to solve, and then figure out how to build a solution for that. And when I say build, it could be an internal build. It could be a new process that you are making faster by using AI, or it could be build your own web page, build your own research agent. Once you get a sense of what are you interested in, what problem am I trying to solve, then figuring out how to build is actually not the difficult part anymore. When it's so easy to make things now, my kids can make videos, they're terrible, but they can make videos. My kids are only 10. And they know how to use CapCut, and they know how to make music through AI. So then the next question becomes, well, what are you hiring for? Deep curiosity is one of the things that CEOs are looking for, which is, are they curious about customers? Are they curious about how things could be different? Are they curious about where these tools could go? Not having curiosity is going to kill you in an AI world, when in the past you might have relied on your ability to make Gantt charts.
When you build something for somebody, is any of that proprietary? Because you clearly have done the 10,000 hours, the checks and balances, all of it. There's a lot of your own potentially IP that you put into these systems.
Not really. As in, it's moving too fast for it to be proprietary anyway. It's so easy to copy. So no, not really. But every team has their own challenges. So part of building a writer, for example, is knowledge base. So their knowledge for their particular circumstances. This is why I talk about doing really narrow use cases, because you can build lots of them.
So the system that you built for one company is not fit for purpose for.
No, but you can take the bones of it.
Yeah,
you can take
there's value in those bones. Is the point I'm making? Is that there's a lot of your own kind of understanding that has built those. Yeah,
there's certain things you can take. So, for example, I build a user experience into these, which is do you know sometimes you go into ChatGPT or Chat and you ask a question, it just gives you 15 pages. So you can train AI to just give enough information so it isn't overwhelming, and to wait. That will work across any team.
Final question: how has the experience of writing the second book been? A lot of writers will say it absolutely kills them. Have you enjoyed it? Has it been?
No, I enjoyed it. It took me a year to write my first book, partly because I hadn't written a book before. And then when I made my first book, the publisher was like, yeah, I really like it, but why don't you change all the chapters? I was like, oh, okay. This time around, I had the hindsight of building the entire framework of the book like being very clear on the sections of the book, and even like a short paragraph on what each chapter is going to be about. The research is much better because I have this agent. So that way's been good. The other thing is this, I don't have a publisher for this one, so I don't have the pressure, which means I'm a bit slow.
Yeah. So the deadline is shifting.
It is, and it's okay. But the other thing is this, like I'm like, my book is specifically about how can marketers thrive in an AI world, and like the longer I wait, the more changes that keep happening. So
do you finish chapter 12 and go back to chapter 1?
Well, I publish it online, so like each chapter goes live, so I can't necessarily revise and rewrite what I wrote. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
So you're looking for universal truths that will stand the test of time.
Yeah, it is, and to some extent they like some things will happen faster, and some things will feel a little bit out of date. I've written most of it, to be quite honest with you. There's a certain joy in building, and so when I should be just finishing a chapter, I'm off trying to build a new challenge. Like I have about 50 projects.
Paul Dervan, thank you very much. You have a titanic mind. That's all I'll say. It's just a volume of information. It's incredible. So it's been really enjoyable, and it's just, I don't know, I think I said to you before, there's so much noise around AI, and I just feel this conversation really puts
very practical,
focus.
Isn't it?
It's useful is what it is. It's just how you can usefully use AI. I just think it's fascinating to speak to you about how the tools can be beneficial. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that was The World According to Paul Dervan from Run With Foxes. My thanks to him for his insights and very practical advice on how AI can be used in, I suppose, constructive, productive, and I suppose reliable ways. If you've enjoyed the pod, please tell a friend or hit the follow button. And if you'd like to get in touch, contact details are in the show notes as ever. The Irish Marketing Podcast is recorded, edited, and mixed at Tim Pom Production Studios. We're back next Friday, wherever you pick your pods. Thank you for listening.